So, hello and welcome everyone to the third or fourth episode of the Graduating Podcast. It's titled Episode 3. It's the fourth episode. You'll have to get used to it. My name is Ryan, and today I'm joined by my co host Spencer.
Hey, hello, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm very excited to get into some of the topics of this episode. I want to start things off by talking about influencers. You've probably heard this word, it's been pretty popular in the last couple of years or so. These people are generally sort of just online celebrities, personalities with a large amount of followers, in the numbers of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even hundreds of millions. These people have an astronomical network reach on this digital space we call the internet. They have a lot of people sort of under their shoes that, worship them like celebrities. And so, they're loyal fans. They're going to listen to whatever these influencers try to say. There's other words for this, there's YouTubers, there's Twitterers. I don't know, I think that's a bit of a stupid one. Um, but it's a pretty interesting phenomena that, one person can sort of rise up and have this kind of internet fame. In terms of YouTubers in a bubble, a lot of these people are just average people like you or me that post one video, it gets viral, and then people want to see more. And it's almost the utopic dream, someone getting popular, but they're not, from a rich family. They don't have any like prior history, like in their family with fame or anything. It's just, the average Joe that works a 9 to 5 or works at, Coles or Woolies or whatever, or Walmart for our American viewers. Um, it's a pretty cool concept to just see someone like that get popular. It happens all the time. These people just start out as college students, or just anybody really can get popular, which is one of the, I think, amazing things about websites like YouTube, Instagram, etc. Um, I find it so interesting because these people go from having almost no influence whatsoever to having thousands of people that will march out or make posts about them, uh, just because they want to be loyal fans. It's just so interesting to me, and it sounds amazing that we have the opportunity for anyone to just become popular, become somebody. What do you think about this, Spencer?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more accessible now that, like you can just set up a camera and record yourself. Like, not everyone had the opportunity to do that. Like, you couldn't do that back in the day. Like, to get a camera, it was very expensive. Like, but now we have a camera on our phone. Everyone's got a camera they just carry around with them. They can upload vlogs of themselves. They can do anyone. So it gives anyone the potential to be famous. But I'm not sure what kind of content that creates where everyone's trying to sort of enter that space. Like
Yeah.
everyone's trying to be a vlogger, everyone's trying to be a TikToker. I'm not sure if that leads to people trying to do different things or everybody trying to do the same thing as everybody else in reaching that fame.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just something that's got to be figured out.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people start making this sort of content and uploading it to the internet for the sake of trying to find that magic formula that does make people famous.
Yeah.
A lot of the times it doesn't work. I actually have a little bit of statistics here. So it says here that 85% of YouTube views go to the top 3% of YouTubers. So there's a high chance that most of the people who try and get out there, whether they want to become popular or just, spread their opinions or thoughts on something, or try and be digitally active with an issue they genuinely care about, they're not going to be heard because of all the big cats that are up at the top, uh, you know, basically hogging all of these views. I mean, in a general sense, like I guess they've earned it because they have worked hard. Being an influencer, an online celebrity, is by no means easy. Of course, there's ways to sort of manufacture like online fame. People have ways of slithering to the top, or at least from my sort of opinions and perspective. Um, but it's kind of scary to think about. It's a bit harmful that all of these views go to just a select amount of people. It's almost like the whole environment of YouTube has become the very thing that it tried to fight against in a way. Because
Yeah.
it always used to be just about the average person uploading whatever they wanted, and they would get the recognition that they would deserve that they deserve. And
Yeah.
now it's more so it all just sort of it's just a pyramid now. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Like back in the day, YouTube used to be just like a bunch of random unknown people who like just made videos. Like I think the first video is just the creator of YouTube at a zoo, and that's like one
yeah,
of the most popular videos. Like, and people were just doing stuff like that because back then it was like the Wild West. It was like open for anyone. But now it's almost like an impenetrable like thing to be like a top tier YouTuber. Like for like the average person, it's very daunting. Like even
yeah,
like services like Twitch, like say you start streaming a random game like Minecraft or something. Someone goes to the Minecraft section, they're going to be recommended the top Minecraft streamers. They're not going to be recommended like the bottom two viewer streamers. Like it's just going to show
mm,
like at the top of the section Minecraft viewers. And it's the same thing with YouTube gaming. Like you started a gaming channel, for instance. Why would someone watch you when they can just watch someone with 10 million subscribers doing the same thing? It's just like I think people don't go out of their way to like try and find new things. They just stick with what they know.
exactly. I think once people, enter a sort of system that's still relatively new and sort of untouched, they will begin to capitalize on it to the point where there's a sort of point of success, and that becomes narrower and narrower as people capitalize on this sort of fresh territory more and more. And so it becomes harder and harder to get your voice out there because there's less opportunity for you to innovate. There's less things that people have never done before on these platforms. So it's just, even though you see people all the time going viral over and over again, it's definitely getting difficult. And of course you're going to see people go viral and viral over and over again, because that's what gets the views. That's what interests people. People see a video with 10 million views and thinks, oh, this must be interesting. This must be something worth watching if 10 million people clicked on it. And that's, part of this problem. That's why all the views are up here in the top 3%. And there's if you've ever spent any time on Twitter as well, this is really obvious as well. I genuinely believe that people have found a formula to go viral on Twitter. People post tweets about whatever. It's just like vocal garbage that can apply to literally everyone. It's like astrology, but trying to be funny or something. I don't know. I'm digressing. I want to sort of link this back to digital activism, obviously. The whole thing where I said that, most of YouTube views go to just a small amount of creators. That's a bit of a problem because what if these top 3% of creators try to, politicize their viewers and sort of say, you should be thinking this or that? Because I think the general sort of phenomenon with media is that, or at least with mainstream media, the news and whatnot, is like they can't tell you what to think, but they tell you what to think about. I think it's a bit more extreme when it comes to these creators because they do tell you what to think. They because of just how loyal fans are to these people. It's the new sort of generation of celebrity worship, and it's really worrying because some of these creators, it's like, to become a YouTuber, you don't need to be a professional. You don't need to be an expert in anything. As we've discussed before, all you need is a computer and an internet connection. That's it. Even the most bare bones of equipment, the lowest quality camera, the cheapest, video editing software, it will do. That's all you need. And it's I mean, it's good and bad. It's good that people have the access to that technology, but it's bad that someone, perhaps with the wrong intentions, can get so popular because of that technology and then misuse their platform, their power, to steer thousands or millions of people into bad places or to, go and contribute to bad acts. What do you think about this, Spencer? Are you sort of on the same page as me, or
Yeah, naturally, if you're a high tier YouTuber or a streamer or a person on Twitter or anyone who is like an influencer, you have more of a public voice or a social voice than someone who doesn't have the following you have naturally. Like you may be able to convince your friends in a discussion what you think is right or whatever. But a YouTuber, like a lot of people hold their opinions on like a pedestal. Like their opinion is like above above all else.
yeah,
So they can really convince their followers to do anything. And I think we saw something like that with the events of Gamergate back in the day on YouTube. Like it led to a lot of gamers like becoming politically motivated, people with no political experience. And today
Yeah.
that's kind of fostered into like a whole environment of like political YouTubers, people like I said, people with no experience, and their word is almost gospel to their followers.
Yeah,
People like
that's a good point actually. Yeah, like there's this whole culture of people trying to be political and pretend like they're educated, but they're not. They're
yeah,
not.
yeah, it's even worse because like at least people on television, like a news presenter or something, is usually they have some degree of journalistic experience, like they've studied it.
Right.
But we've seen a lot of YouTubers just like trying to like influence their like followers based on really nothing. Like it's kind of dangerous because on one hand it is good that someone can kind of get their voice out there, without having to step through all the hurdles that someone like untraditional media would have had to. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, it can become really dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. I remember back towards the 2016 US election, we had a lot of online personalities, YouTubers in particular, making videos or making content, encouraging their viewers to go vote, right? You have to understand, a lot of YouTube users aren't at the legal age for voting. And even though there's a lot of YouTube viewers based in the United States, there's still there's a lot of viewers outside the United States. It's not the only country in the world. Um,
Yeah.
and not only this, I remember there being so many cases where people would make these videos trying to sort of say, go vote for the sake of the country, for the good of everybody, but they would sway it in such a way to sort of say, go vote for Clinton or go vote for Trump, whilst also still trying to maintain the position of, oh, I'm just trying to do a good thing by telling people to go to these election booths, to the elected booths or whatever the hell they're called. I don't know. I'm Australian. And put your vote in. Go to the ballots, put your slip in, and say I want Clinton or I want Trump, um, which was pretty disingenuous. Like that's a really good example, I feel like, of an abuse of platform power. You know, and just it's almost the concept of arguing with someone and saying I'm not trying to argue with you. It's just disingenuous, and because some of these creators like they rule with an iron fist, and like their fans will listen to anything they say. And especially like this is really troubling for the youth as well because they can just politicize the youth as much as they want. And of course, we'll get into that later whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think there's semantics and lines to sort of talk about. But I sort of want to get into sort of cancel culture a little bit. So if you don't know what cancel culture is, it's pretty popular on Twitter. It's the sort of phenomena of people, usually tweens or teenagers, bringing up old tweets or posts or content from anyone famous, whether it's an online celebrity or just a real celebrity, bringing up things from their past that might not look very good in today's political climate, and trying to deplatform them in a sense because of what was said back then. Usually, someone says a hateful slur or something, or they have an incredibly bad take on some political topic, and people, of course, get very upset of it, very upset about it, to the point where it's just they create hashtags and they just fill Twitter feeds with just cancel this person, cancel that person. I think like Stephen King tried to get cancelled or something, because I think he said something like he didn't consider diversity when he was like writing his stories or whatever, which is an interesting perspective, at the very least. But I don't think it's worth, deplatforming him. But that's just my opinion. Cancel culture is one heck of a beast, and it's still being sort of observed and figured out even to this day. And it almost seems like people want to cancel just about anyone for any reason, just for something to do. And like I said, it's usually teenagers, people who are unemployed, people spend a lot of time online. It's just, I can't seem to justify it. It's just, I feel like it's just a bunch of bored teenagers just trying to find a hashtag to spam over and over again. What do you think, Spencer? What do you think cancel culture is?
Well, I mean, I think there's degrees to it. I support cancel culture when it does its job of holding like people in higher power like accountable.
Yeah.
Because often you think of like people in Hollywood or celebrities or something like that as like these untouchable like figures. Like I think the Me Too movement is a good example of cancel culture done right, because like you see these people like Harvey Weinstein who've gotten away for so long because they're so powerful that they can abuse, you know, their power to like keep people out of Hollywood and lie and deceive people. And I think cancel culture is a bunch of people getting together to hold people like that accountable when it's done right. But obviously there's the negative end of it. Like, you know, if someone says something you don't like, and if it's just something harmless, like they disagree with you on a certain like innocent point, like who they're voting for or something, I don't think they deserve to be cancelled for that. But if they're doing something like morally horrible, like what we saw in the Me Too incident, then I think it's good to hold these people accountable.
Yeah, I think in my mind, I personally have like a line between, holding someone accountable and canceling them. Um, I do agree, you should hold people accountable when they do make mistakes. Um, if I think I could still even agree with that for like past mistakes from 10, 20 years ago, because if it's never addressed or apologized for or dealt with or anything, then I do think it needs to be brought up and at least discussed, you can't put everything under a rug. So I guess that's like one, good part of cancel culture. I think one of my issues with it is that because of how passionate people are with that sort of idea, it sort of clogs up social media in a way. Like you go onto Twitter and it's the only thing you see. It's usually one YouTuber said something that I didn't like 10 years ago. And it's like, oh well, okay, what's the big deal with that? Boom, 100,000 tweets. And it's like, well, what about the important things, you know? And then again, that brings in the whole argument of, should important things be on Twitter? Is that the reason why you should be using Twitter? What's Twitter for? Is entertainment and, cancel culture blocking these airways?
Yeah, it's almost like what you were saying before. It's almost like it's not people just randomly found something from 10 years ago to cancel. It's like they already have their opinion on this influencer and they want to cancel them. So they go
Right.
looking for something from 10 years ago. That kind of canceling where it's like you already hate this person, so you just want to find something to vilify them for. That's not the kind of like good. Like it's more about holding people accountable, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it works better when it does have, an observable effect, and when it does hold people accountable, and of course instigate change.
Yeah.
I sort of want to transition this into some talks about slacktivism. The first, well, you've probably heard this word before. The first question I want to ask about slacktivism is, what is it? And I might lead Spencer to maybe answer this question.
Well, just in the broad sense, slacktivism is, I guess, trying to like feel like you're part of an activist movement without actually putting in the real world effort to it. It's sort of like substituting doing effective activist like demonstration with like say posting a petition or like retweeting something or liking a YouTube video. It's very minor steps towards like a justified goal without actually committing to doing something major.
Yeah, because if you think about it, one of the most popular petition sites on the internet now is change.org. You've probably heard of it. Uh, some people even watching might have signed their name on hundreds, maybe even thousands of change.org petitions. But how many times have you seen petitions like that actually result in something? Because a lot of the time it's just people clicking a button to say, yes, I agree with this, and that's it. It's a glorified like button, in my mind, a lot of the times. Or maybe it's because I just don't do enough research into that sort of thing. Maybe there are some change.org instances where it has actually done something or led to something positive. Um, I think in the grand scheme of things, though, slacktivism is a mostly negative thing, and a lot of people look at slacktivism as if it's the only part of digital activism, and that's why there's such a stigma surrounding digital activism. People take a one look at all these teenagers posting like this one hashtag or posting like this one like equals $1 thing on Facebook or whatever, and thinking, that's all there is to digital activism, which, well, is just completely ignorant. And it's like, it's hard to look past that because of how rampant slacktivism is, but there's more to it than that. I think it's
Yeah.
just so widespread because of how easy it is to take part in slacktivism, whether intentional or not, because all it takes is to pretend like you care. That's it.
Yeah.
All you have to do is post one hashtag, one image, and that's it. And you're part of making digital activism look worse. Congratulations.
I think it's the constant engagement on social media. It's like you see something pop up that you feel a little bit concerned about, like, oh, this thing happened, I could go and protest about it or something, but I'm constantly engaged. I can just keep scrolling and do whatever. It's much easier for me to just like something and move on than it is for me to go outside and start demonstrating, start protesting. I do think minor steps are important. Doing something like signing a petition or like tweeting out your support for something is better than doing nothing. At
Yeah.
least you're doing something. But when you're actively substituting that for doing something like effective and actually going out and doing something major, if you're using it as a substitute, from what we've learned in our previous research, digital activism works best when it actually encourages people to go out and do things like we saw with the George Floyd Black Lives Matter stuff. Like it works best when it gets people together to like work towards like a common goal and get out and protest than it does when it substitutes major things with minor things.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you brought that up. That segues perfectly into my next point. I wanted to talk about Blackout Tuesday. I know we've brought up the whole George Floyd, incident and the Black Lives Matter protests surrounding that incident, quite a bit in this podcast. But I want to bring it up for one final time because I think Blackout Tuesday is a really interesting sort of series of events that should be covered in this episode. So if you don't know, Blackout Tuesday happened on the 2nd of June, 2020. This was about a week after the passing of George Floyd. Um, and essentially what happened was 28 million Instagram users posted a black square on this particular date with the hashtag Blackout Tuesday. The reason they did this, as reported, is to show their support for Black Lives Matter, that entire movement, and to mourn for George Floyd. And of course, that sounds good on the surface, but that's a recurring pattern in this podcast. It sounds good on the surface, but it isn't really all that good. It's I think at least one interesting note is that so many people can get on board with one thing, but with this thing is very arbitrary. It's one picture, not even a picture, just a color with a hashtag. And what this ended up doing was one of the side effects of this entire Blackout Tuesday hashtag is that it actually blocked out important posts on Instagram about these protests and uh, police brutality in America. It just completely washed these feeds out of anything useful. No one could get any actual information about the protests or anything because of Blackout Tuesday. There were so many posts everywhere of people, yeah, just continuing with this Blackout Tuesday trend, and it was ridiculous. Like, yeah, good on you for supporting Black Lives Matter and everything, but I think so many people were ignorant in what they were doing because you can't really get that much information from one hashtag and one black square. It's I think it's just reductive because, like I said, it did block out a lot of really important posts. Is there any comments you want to make about that, Spencer? Do you like remember any of this Blackout Tuesday nonsense when it
Yeah,
happened?
I remember seeing it a few times. Again, I think minor steps are, better than doing nothing. Sure, if you post a black square, you could be doing something more, but like if people see the black square thing and they like search up what it's about and they learn more about the cause for people who previously may not have, paid much attention to it, I think it's still doing something somewhat valid. Sure, people are going to abuse it. People who don't really care about it, they just want to look good and
Right.
look morally righteous on social media or whatever. But even then, at least people are becoming more aware from it. I mean, that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah. But as you said, it's a lot easier to keep scrolling than it is to actually click on anything and do some research. That's why I think a lot of people, when they looked at this Blackout Tuesday nonsense, they sort of thought, "Oh, is this what people are doing in the wake of George Floyd's death? Like that's ridiculous. Like, and then they just make a whole farce of trying to be digitally active with an online space, and I think it just sort of dampened the reputation a bit. Like, if you could post something like a black square with that hashtag and actually say something, then all credit to you. But at least with most of the posts that I saw, it was just nothing, and I just thought it was counterproductive to sort of undermine everything that had happened into just a color, you know?
I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's counterproductive because, again, I still feel like doing something minor is still doing something better than nothing. And it's not like the people who posted the black square thing. I don't think the majority of them would have done anything real. Like they wouldn't have gone out and protested. So if that's what they're gonna do, at least they've done the bare minimum rather than like doing nothing at all. And
Yeah.
with the keep scrolling thing, like people are just gonna keep scrolling no matter what. It doesn't matter what someone would post. Like it's just the nature of social media. We're constantly engaged by everything. Like we're going to see something and keep scrolling, like, because the majority of people who do that, they're not interested in actively going out and doing something. They just want to, feel engaged from what they're looking at. But it goes back to the selectivism thing. Like people are just, that's just the nature of like the internet, like and the online space.
Yeah, I think I can see what you're saying there. It is better that they're doing something. Um, I think it also brings in the question of, is posting something doing nothing as well? I think that's a pretty interesting topic. Yeah, as I said, at least people want to show that they at least thought about it. And I guess in defense of those who contributed to Blackout Tuesday, it's hard to really um, get into the field and get on the ground and support this kind of thing with the whole COVID pandemic, and the fact that this all these Black Lives Matter protests were initially taking place, in Minneapolis, in this one area in the world. So it was hard to really, do something in person to make a difference. So I think a lot of people did use this to show their support from afar, even if they didn't actually, contribute to a real world change. They at least sort of, contributed to that number of 28 million posts and sort of said, this many people on Instagram, agree with this or, want to be part of this movement. At least they, did that in that regard. I mean, it's there's so many layers to it. There's a lot of complexity, and I find it amazing how there's so much complexity in people posting a black square on Instagram. It's amazing how much you can read from that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's more part of it's like a part of digital activism where it's like we want to start a trend
Right.
to like try and like achieve more awareness about something. If it led to a couple of more people, like looking into it and researching it and getting involved, then it's done its cause. But yeah, it's the fact that we're talking about it now proves that it did get some sort of like like attention, and even if we're talking about it, discussing if it's a positive or a negative thing, if it got our attention and it got the attention of like a lot of people, then I'm sure that it has convinced more than a few people to get involved in the cause.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, it's guaranteed that out of all those 28 million posts, at least one person went and did the research to figure out exactly what everyone was talking about. Because,
Yeah.
of course, maybe the entire news of what happened to George Floyd or, the protests that were going on, maybe that wasn't apparent to people outside of the US, because even with how advanced we are with technology nowadays, news can still take a while to travel, especially people try to block out that news and say, oh, this didn't happen, or this person didn't kill that person, There's all sorts of different biases and, um, sort of allegations and uh, all these different things that can sort of shroud the truth. I think we'll just move on quickly to this last point. Some of the challenges of digital activism. Of course, we've talked about some of the downsides of digital activism, or at least some of the things that need to be improved on with digital activism throughout not only this episode but the entire podcast. So I might start. I might start off with you, Spencer. What do you think needs to be improved on in terms of the entire space of digital activism? What needs to be a bit better?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is, like we've mentioned this before, but people using it online spaces as a way to deceive and manipulate and mislead and outright lie to people. And we talked about the TED talk that lady had, where she had mentioned the Brexit thing, where there was that
Yeah.
Facebook page, Facebook post full of falsehoods that potentially convinced like a lot of people to vote, to leave. And that kind of thing is very easy. Like a lot of people are just like they read whatever and they're not going to fact check it because it takes a lot of extra work to go and search up and to make sure everything someone's saying is true.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are just going to believe like whatever their favorite YouTuber is arguing for, whatever their favorite TikTok or like Twitch streamer is like suggesting. So I feel like that's that's kind of a problem with digital activism. But I don't know if that's more to do with the individual or more to do with the space of like digital media. But I'm sure it's probably a bit of both, because it's probably encouraged somewhat from digital media, but like also people, if we want it to succeed, people have to do some extra research to make sure what they're reading is true.
Yeah, I think there's in every department, in every sense of the imagination, there's always a little bit more that people can be doing. We can always be doing a little bit better. Digital activism obviously isn't perfect. There are, of course, issues that are more sort of coming from the actual media of digital activism. There's issues coming from the people involved. I think the biggest gripe for me is the lack of moderation that digital activism has. That's the nature of the internet. There are a lot of places where you can post whatever you want, whether it's deceiving, whether it's you're posting like a lot of misinformation, just straight up making up facts or facts, I suppose. Um, I think that lack of just overseeing of what's being posted and who's saying what to who, and who's like who's trying to lead the wrong crowds and things like that. I guess Facebook has sort of had its thing where it's like fact checking a lot of posts and stuff and lots of article links and all that stuff. But then even with that, that's not perfect either. There's things being fact checked with like the wrong information by Facebook itself, and it's like who says that Facebook, everything that Facebook says is right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's they're gonna mess up at some point, and they're gonna, of course, try and spin it so whatever is allowed on Facebook fits their agenda, whatever that agenda may be. Um,
And I
yeah,
mean, like it happens the same thing with articles or journalists. Like if they get something wrong, they'll go back and edit it. But by that point, it's already had its influence. Like it's already like convinced like a lot of people who won't go back and see if the article's edited to
yeah,
to see if what the journalist was saying held up, or if it was eventually proven to be wrong. They'll just read out and move on. So it's just like it's a very difficult issue to address.
yeah. And when people share articles to Facebook or any social media, a lot of people don't even click on the article and read it. They see the title, they see what's happened to who or what's happened where, and they see a picture and then they move on. That's it. They might do a quick check of like the link of the article and see like what website it was like posted under, to see if it was like a reputable website or if it's like some random WordPress website or uh, like The Onion or something. But yeah, I think that's like a problem with the people. People can be doing a bit better, and I think a lot of people can see the better parts of digital activism if they choose to, if they want to scratch beneath the surface and see what good it's done, and what sort of influence it has had in the real world. Um, and just to be a bit more, I think everyone could be a bit more optimistic with this thing as well. I think if you keep holding the philosophy that it's a good tool when used correctly, then you might have a better perspective on it in the future. And I think I can take that advice too, because I have been rather pessimistic, especially this episode. Um, what do you think, Spencer? You got some final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what we talked about last episode, I feel like people are becoming more actively aware of what tactics and strategies people co-opt in the online space. Like we were talking about with the Black Lives Matter hashtag, how people would often co-opt that and try and give a counter viewpoint. And we learned from the stats that like Black Lives Matter had effectively combated that and not let that happen to their hashtag. Like they had kind of drowned out those posts. And what I also didn't mention that episode was the Blue Lives Matter combat to those posts, because
Oh yeah.
during times where Black Lives Matter was like a popular tweet, we would also see a rise in Blue Lives Matter tweets. But the thing that separated Black Lives Matter from Blue Lives Matter is Blue Lives Matter was always represented as a counter, whereas Black Lives Matter was able to remain to contain its popularity as a hashtag throughout, whereas Blue Lives Matter only kind of propped up as a response hashtag when Black Lives Matter was popular.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's also another problem of like digital activism. People only want to talk about issues, or at least a lot of people only seem to want to talk about issues when they're popular or when they're relevant in the media. Of course, I think I can't blame them, of course, because it's sort of hard to keep track of everything that's happening in the world at once. It's hard to, really have a grasp on every single social issue. And so, of course, when one of them comes back into the limelight because of something that's happened, you think, oh, this is horrible, and all these people online are saying these horrible things, I should go and try and inform them, or at least, give my perspective on this thing. Um, it just, yeah, and it's interesting how you say, how you were talking about the Blue Lives Matter hashtag and how that's come up as its own sort of opposition to Black Lives Matter, which is, honestly, that's pretty ironic, honestly. But I think my favorite part of what you said was, um, Black Lives Matter can have its own prominence, external of Blue Lives Matter, and whatever other hashtags want to oppose it. It's Black Lives Matter is its own thing and can exist for its own purposes without having to have that relation, that link to opposing hashtags. That's why I think it's so strong, and I'm glad it's so strong. It's a pretty hopeful thing to look at, and I hope that more hashtags of that nature can sort of achieve that ideal prominence in the future.
Exactly. We've like I think it's always best to try and take an optimistic look at things, and we only have to like refer back to last episode to see the good that one simple hashtag can bring. Black Lives Matter has resulted in one of the largest movements in U.S. history, and that's just all from spreading its popularity through a hashtag, through social media, through Facebook, through Twitter.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like a textbook example of the good that digital activism can do.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think what I might try to do going forward is to not necessarily try harder when it comes to digital activism, but just to try more.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't do enough when it comes to some of the social issues that I see online. I think a big part of it is like I don't want to make excuses, but anytime I do see social issues online, it's usually something that isn't like detrimental to society, or it's not you know life or death or whatever. But that's probably got to do with who I'm following on my social medias and things like that, and what kind of um avenues of social media I'm paying attention to, because I mostly use it for entertainment purposes and to like share artwork, or just talk about things I'm interested in, which is a bit self-centered. So I think what I can do is be a bit more outreaching, and maybe take some time away from just trying to look at memes or all the time. What about you, Spencer? Is there anything that you'd like to maybe change about your social media usage going forward?
Yeah, I think I should probably become more involved in the productive and informative aspects of digital media, because whenever like there's a big news event, I'm always reluctant to sort of learn about it, because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to fact check this. I'm gonna have to like read to
Yeah.
make sure this is correct and stuff, and it just leads to me not doing anything at all, which is even worse. Like I need to become a more productive user of social media and digital media, and actively get involved in the things that like are really necessary to learn about.
Yeah, I do think one way to conclude all of this is that it's worse to set off doing nothing than it is to try and do something and having it amount to nothing. Because if you
Exactly.
if you at least had the intention of doing something, that means you tried, which is sometimes is the best you can ask for, especially in the circumstances we're living in now, where social media is so dominant and we're all stuck inside because of COVID. Um, and so I guess I can sort of give credit to those who did contribute to Blackout Tuesday, because they at least had good intentions. They didn't try to hashtag like hijack any hashtags, or say anything misleading about what was going on. They just tried to show their support from a distance, which in a way is pretty innovative. And you got me talking about it and researching exactly what Blackout Tuesday was about, even though I thought initially it was a farce. So you did it. You did something good. You educated me. If that's just one person out of 28 million, then so be it. It's done something.
Exactly. The fact, how long after Blackout Tuesday are we, and we're still kind of addressing
Yeah.
it in this podcast? Like, I know we also had someone in the survey give that response where like, I don't think posting a black square is doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our surveys. So it's yeah, become something that's still sticking with us like many like months or even over a year later. Like,
Mm.
I'm sure some people saw it and did the right thing.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. I can definitely see that perspective now. But that's about it for today's episode. I would like to thank everyone for joining us on YouTube and SoundCloud. I would like to announce that this is the final official episode of our, digital activism saga for this podcast. It's been a really fun journey. Of course, we've learnt a lot. We've even learnt a lot in just this episode as well, which is really cool. Um, it's been a really, really interesting journey. It's the first podcast I've ever done. It's been a lot of work, definitely, but it's been a challenge I've enjoyed to embark on. It's just been, yeah, it's been great to work in this kind of space and, talk about digital activism while being digitally active. I think that's the best part about it, honestly. And I think this is a really, a really effective part of our project for Victoria University. Of course, Spencer, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you on this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this project with you, with the paper and the report and everything.
Yeah, I got to say a similar thing. Like I was very nervous going to the podcast because obviously I'd never done anything like this either. But I've felt rewarded doing this. It's helping me develop skills that I hadn't learned. And after every podcast, I feel like we've improved as hosts, as facilitators of discussion. I've enjoyed some of the discussions we've had, like especially this episode. It's made me see different perspectives and made me have valuable like sort of talks to make me learn things. And also it's obviously been amazing working with Ryan, and Ryan is kind of like the genius of this podcast. He's done the YouTube channel, he's done the thumbnails, he's done all the editing. Obviously, I can't do that. Like I'm not like I don't have my expertise in that area. And he's really just like kind of set out the themes of like what we're going to discuss in the episode, and he's kind of led the discussion. So yeah, all the magic goes to him.
Oh, I'm flattered, you doll. But yeah, no, that's about everything. Even though this is the end of the digital activism saga, as I said, we do have something special coming out in about a week. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but I'm very excited to start working on it, and you'll see that, yeah, in a week. So look forward to that. It's going to be a bit of a send off to this series. And hey, maybe we'll come back one day. Who knows? Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
maybe.
maybe we'll find some more stuff to talk about. Maybe the digitally active world will just explode with just things to observe and things to learn about. But yeah, that's about it. That's all I've got to say for today. Thank you everyone for joining us on YouTube and SoundCloud. Oh, and I should mention the special thing for next week. That's only on YouTube. So sorry, SoundCloud viewers, you'll have to transition over. But yeah, no, that's about everything. Thank you, Spencer, for joining me.
Thank you,
Uh,
Ryan. It's been fun.
yeah, no, my pleasure. And yeah, I hope everyone takes care. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the series. Bye bye.